Hello again. You are listening to Is This Strange? Stories of the Unusual by KL and Roxy. So today we're going to be talking about some of our experiences that we had in North Carolina. Mainly just one experience. We had quite a few and we'll come back to them over time. But this one was very eye-opening, I would say. It was shocking.
Yeah.
And it was definitely
Strange.
Yeah.
Now, a little bit of back history of North Carolina. Is it North Carolina the state that has like the most number of cemeteries? They just plop them down.
Yeah, unmarked cemeteries.
Unmarked cemeteries. Because there was a lot of Civil War activity back then.
Oh, just a lot of
families, and then they would just bury their relatives in the yard basically and put headstones down. And
if you were lucky.
And
one of the areas that we lived in, it was called Indiantown. And it was called that because before the European settlers came in, white folk, they took and it had been a giant Native American tribe that lived there.
Right.
It was fresh water. There was a really nice stream that ran through that area and stuff. And then later on, when the Civil War and stuff started, they were running
logs.
They were running logs
and running them down the river to get to the bay. It became a area of interest for the Europeans to for the Americans to.
And by the time we got there, it was still mainly just farmland. It really wasn't much. I guess it wasn't that interesting after all.
But it's interesting because even though it was farmland, when we started digging and doing stuff, we found all sorts of buckles and horse pieces, old pieces of metal in the yard, old buggy hinges.
The story was, and it wouldn't surprise me because, again, it was North Carolina and it had a lot of slavery that happened. We actually had a old
foundation.
Yeah. But the stories that people told us is at one time there had been an old carriage shed on our property that burned down. And then on the property that was right next to us, because, these were all just giant farmlands that they eventually just split up into like 10-acre plots and stuff.
Yeah.
The one next to us was an old slave shack that they took and rehabbed into a house for people to live in. And then right down the road was an old slave schoolhouse.
Yes.
And they were trying to get money up to rehab it.
Rehab it, yeah.
That kind of gives you where we lived.
Right.
Okay.
Lots of swamp.
And lots of swamp, yes.
Right.
We weren't that far from the Dismal Swamp, if you've ever heard of the Dismal Swamp. So,
which has its own interesting story.
Oh, yeah. And we'll go into that, too.
Yeah.
We would get a lot of hurricanes. We would get a lot of nor'easters. We would just get a lot of rain and bad weather, period. And we had horses. And so we always had to go out, especially in the hurricanes and stuff. And we might have to take branches off of our
electric fences.
Yeah, off of our fences, things like that. And we would be out there like holding on to each other while the wind's trying to blow us over.
20 mile per hour winds and we're walking in 8 inches of water and winds and the fences down, and we didn't.
Yeah, and so we would have to, we'd be like repairing fences and hurricanes and stuff. And there was one time where a hurricane had come in, and it was like, I don't know, 3:00 in the morning or something like that. And I heard a noise, and when I flashed the flashlight out there, I could see we had a giant limb on one of our fences.
Yep. So
we went outside, grudgingly. We went outside in this hurricane and got it off, and we're tidying. So this is the point. It's windy. It's raining. It is loud. Okay. So when I tell you what happens here, you're going to understand why.
And there was nothing but farmland surrounding us. So
yes,
there would have been nobody out there with us.
Yeah. No one else was insane.
Yeah.
To be out there at this time of night.
That's also the time that you fell in the water and you like missed a pokey stick by like that much. And it would have been really
She's showing
bad.
3 inches, by the way.
Yeah. It was dangerous, but you didn't want the horses to get hurt either. So
no, I didn't want them to get.
So 3 a.m. That's the storyline. 3 a.m. Heavy winds. It's pitch dark. It's drizzling on us. We're standing in like 6 to 8 inches of water that got dumped from from the storms earlier that day, and it was just
It was still going on.
It was. I think
I was like, where did you get drizzling?
Was it raining that hard? Oh yeah, the wind was blowing us over, so we were hanging on to T-posts and each other. And
yeah. So after we took off the huge limb, I mean, this was a big limb. After we got that off of the fence, I'm down on one end, Roxy's down on the other, and we're trying to tighten this fence back up because it had stretched it out real bad. So we're trying to tighten this up, and she calls out to me like, are you ready? And before I could answer, a very, very deep male voice said yes. And I mean, I'm like flashing that flashlight behind me, like, where the fuck did that come from? Even Roxy heard it. And then the problem is, Roxy, you were what, like a good 20, 30 feet away?
So it was very, very loud and clear and easy to hear despite all of the noise.
Yeah, I mean, I could barely hear Roxy during the storm, and yet I could hear this voice, and there was no one there. I mean, I was checking, there was no one there, but yet there was a voice that answered. Now, I will tell you later on about some other things that happened there. But like we said, this was a very old piece of property. It's North Carolina. There was just a lot of stuff we found on that property when we were digging, like fence posts, our septic, all sorts of stuff. Pretty sure one time I even found a gravestone.
And a creepy doll head.
Oh.
Remember the creepy doll head?
I probably blocked it out. Dolls creep me out, period.
Yeah, it was an old ceramic creepy doll head in the old foundation that we found. The
okay,
bricks.
So the one up front.
Yeah, that was really freaky.
All right, so you tell me, is this strange? And we will come back later with another episode. Bye.